with Intention, podcast where we bring you stories from around the globe. Hello and welcome back to another episode on Rise and Thrive Mornings with Intention. And today I have a beautiful guest with me, Jacklyn Ryan. Welcome so much, dear.
Thank you, Ava. Thank you for the
So
invite.
thank you so much for being here with us today. And Jacklyn, please tell us a little bit about yourself and where are you from in the world?
Well, I'm originally from the great state of Arkansas, the state above Texas. But and I grew up in Arkansas and I got to Texas as soon as I could for about 20 years, lived in Miami, Florida, back to Texas, and then 9/11 happened and I returned to Arkansas because my parents were aging and I was concerned about my parents getting older and I was 6 hours away. So I returned to Northwest Arkansas, home of JB Hunt, Tyson's, and Walmart to be closer to my family.
Wow. That's amazing. So we share something similar. We are part of Action Takers Publishing, and Jacklyn here has been in the weekly Smart Women. What inspired you to join that particular book? Please tell us about that.
Well, I love the title, Wickedly Smart Women. And my first podcast was with Angel Hartwell 2 years ago. So Angel made me feel very comfortable and a very go-getter woman that she is, and then introduced me to Linda Sunshine West and the Wickedly Smart Women. And Linda and I began talking a little bit, and I was one of the first contributing authors of that book, actually, and it's come together very well. A vast amount of experience with a vast amount of different women across the world to go into that one book, Wickedly Smart Women.
Awesome. And where is it available for purchase? Can you tell us about that, please?
Wickedly Smart Women is available on Amazon, and I don't know about Barnes and Noble, but absolutely on Amazon. And anytime anybody's reading a book, please write a review.
For sure. So we will share those links to Amazon later on. But for now, we'll dive into more of the topic today. You are a senior care advocate. What inspired you to become one, and how did your personal caregiving journey lead to writing caregivers, caretakers?
Yes. Well, my profession is commercial real estate. I was selling office buildings, shopping centers, leasing industrial space in Dallas, Texas. I did a little bit in Miami, Florida, back in Dallas, Texas. And then I returned to Northwest Arkansas. And being in real estate, Ava, I don't know about all the states, but in the state of Texas and in the state of Arkansas, when I was getting my license in each state, I had to be fingerprinted and background checked.
Mm.
So even if I'm selling a piece of dirt, land for development, that I'm not even in your home, that I have been fingerprinted in state of Texas and Arkansas and background checked in the state of Texas and Arkansas. So that was part of my profession as a realtor, that we are all fingerprinted and background checked. So what threw me into the senior care advocacy is because of what happened to my own parents, which they're divorced. They were divorced and lived about 15 miles apart. And at one point that I was caring for both of them at the same time, my dad had caregivers for 7 years. One fall does it all. He broke his hip. He went to the hospital, went to rehab, came home. We got a caregiving agency. A month or 2 or 3 months later, he broke his other hip. So then it's 24/7 care for my dad. Life-changing event, you know. And then my mother, later on, she developed cancer and then she was at home for hospice care for 6 months. So I have caregivers for my dad at his house. And then I employed, well, I shouldn't say I employed, but we employed the family, she did, a different home care agency for my mom for a short amount of time. So at a time, both my parents were down. And what compelled me to write my book was not only my stories, Ava, but I was talking to other people, and then I'm learning that other people have their stories about inept, immoral, unethical caregivers coming into their home to take advantage of their parents or sibling or disabled or a loved one of a vulnerable loved one of some sort. So I have about 15 chapters in my book, in which 13 are of different people. One is actually of a home care giver in the state of Florida, and for what she has experienced on the inside of being a home caregiver and how inept the other caregivers and agencies are. And she's got a saying, they are only as good as the agency that hires them. So, um, let me delve in a little bit is what I didn't know reflecting is when we are out here and I'm in America, unlike Canada, so I don't know the differences. But in America, we will pay, the home care agencies will charge anywhere from 25 to $50 an hour to care for your loved one. Okay, so then they're going to have a caregiver, and it may be contract labor and not an employee, i.e., no benefits as an employee. Yeah. So independent contractor. So they hire Susie Q to come out to take care of Jack. And you would expect that Susie Q would be fingerprinted and background checked. Well, if Susie Q is only getting paid 10 to maybe $14 an hour as an independent contractor, no hiring bonus, no benefits, what kind of person are you going to get to care for your vulnerable loved one for 10 to $14 an hour?
Mm.
Not very good. Not very
Mm.
good. So I am working on legislation here in the state of Arkansas. Unfortunately, it should be national. But yes, come to find out that these caregivers are not fingerprinted or background checked. They might be background checked. I'm working with our local, well, our state Arkansas Alzheimer's Association. I finally found the right guy. And this is the point. You've got to find the right person to do this work. I can't do it by myself. And nobody can do it by yourself. But I found the Arkansas Alzheimer's Association. He is working on some legislation, some draft bills right now to be presented in next 2025 spring legislation under the more of the Consumer Protection Act instead of healthcare. But that one, that these agencies will be required to be licensed. They're not licensed, i.e., there is no regulatory oversight on these agencies. Unlike in real estate, we've got the Real Estate Commission. We've got Texas Real Estate Commission, Arkansas Real Estate Commission, Kansas, whatever. We've got a real estate commission to oversee real estate companies, and real estate companies oversee the real estate brokers. There's a chain of command there. In the wormhole of healthcare of agencies and maybe some of the facilities, there's not. There is not. So what's going to happen is that we're going to require these private pay agencies, as well as come to find out Medicaid agencies that provide services under Medicaid, they already pay a license fee, but these private pays do not. My dad paid over 215,000 a year for home care to be taken care of, 215,000 a year. Yes, he was wealthy.
Mhm.
But one of the caregivers, and that's why I call it caregiver scare takers, she had been in jail for meth a few years earlier.
Wow.
And she only disclosed this a couple of years into her employment to me because she knew I couldn't do anything about it because my dad had fallen in love with her, as most widowed men do fall in love with their caregivers. So she'd been in jail for meth. I found her face on mugshot without any teeth because
Wow.
meth chews up your teeth. So she had false teeth. And so when she first appeared, Ava, is that one, she showed up, star. Two, she showed up on time. Yay. Three, she had a bright smile and she was engaging. And so we just loved her. She took care of my dad. Dad liked her. And it wasn't until about 2.5 years or so into her 7-year employment with this agency that she disclosed that she'd been in jail before, and she financially exploited my dad for 100 up to $100,000. He paid
Wow.
off her uh, mortgage. He paid off her mortgage. He would give her two or three calves for her cousin to take care of. Cattle, we were in the cattle business, and he would pay for her granddaughter's uh, summer camps and stuff. And
Wow.
there's nothing I could do about it because I'm just the whiny daughter, right?
Mm.
I'm just the whiny daughter. I do have a stepbrother and brother, but sometimes it's just easier to leave things alone because he's happy than to try to make anything right.
Wow. What a story.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I take it you're on a mission to raising the bar on caregivers.
Yes.
So tell us, let's go into more professional background here. What specific steps can families maybe take to ensure they are hiring qualified and trustworthy individuals going forward? Like
Uh,
any
ex-
tips you can give us?
excellent, excellent, the most excellent question, Ava, because think about it. You're in a crisis moment. Your dad has a stroke. Your dad has fallen. Your mother has fallen down. You're in a crisis moment. So, do you spend time to interview three or five agencies or facilities, or do you just, hey, that sounded good. Oh, somebody recommended that one. Okay, let's go there. Okay. So, out of that lesson, don't wait for a crisis to happen. If you have parents over 70, 75 years old, um, I would recommend that you go interview some home care agencies or start educate yourself about recommendations more than from one person. Yes. Um, Ask the agencies if they do fingerprinting and background checks. Ask if they do background check every year or every 3 years, or if they've done a background check at all.
Mhm.
Um,
I love that. That's very good points right there.
yeah,
Ready.
I had no idea. I just assumed. I mean, we went through a wheelhouse of caregivers through these home care agencies because it's the same thing. These home care agencies are just trying to find a warm body to throw out to your loved one, to your vulnerable loved one. So, what are you going to get again for 10 to 13, $14 an hour?
Mm.
So, you know, um, it's just that's the biggest parts. Um, I have a list of questions in my book, Caregiver Scare Takers Exposing Fraud in Senior Care, a list of questions to go through and interviewing agencies, interviewing caregivers. A particular question, Ava, and this was interesting because if you've got a loved one who has dementia or Parkinson's. And so I did this on a caregiver individually, in which if you're hiring somebody individually, you can do a background check on them. Just Google about doing a background check, and you can do a background check on somebody you hire direct, which will save you money, but you're in charge of hiring them and firing them and paying the employment and everything that way. But an interesting question, Ava, is when you're dealing with somebody maybe with dementia or something, a caregiver, say, well, Fran has all these people in her house, and this little girl and this other old man in her house. How would you respond to Fran when Fran tells you that, well, she's got all these people in her house, and what is she going to have to do? Do you say, oh, they're not real, that's just your imagination, and change the subject? Or do you get into Fran's world and say, well, I don't know, tell me about this little girl, or um, do you want them here or what are they doing? You've got to get into their world because that is their world. And those people they see are as real to them as me talking to you, Ava. It's freaky weird, but that's the reality of their world, which isn't our reality. But for a qualifying question for a caregiver who may needed to care for someone that has dementia or doesn't, you know, you know, ask, how do you respond um, if they spill their milk or if they spill their food? How do you respond to that? They're going to give you certain answers. Um, Also, um, and I believe it may be on a questionnaire now for a home care agency, will you have cameras in the house? So if it is your parents' house, um, if your parent is okay with having a camera or two in the house, yes, let the agency know that there are cameras in the house. That is legal. Now, what happened with me is it was my dad's house, and so there was nothing I could do. So I would just have to rely on, I would hear conversations when I was coming in the back door sometimes. And, um, this caregiver was turning my dad against me to the point, the last year, the year before he died, I had taken a picture of three grocery receipts totaling over $300 over a 2 week period that my dad paid for. My little skinny dad that was like 87 years old, and he had over $300 of groceries. And I took pictures of the receipts and I sent them to Claire. And I said, do you have enough groceries? Do you all have enough groceries now for the rest of the month? And there was no response.
Mhm.
But about a month later, I was removed as my father's health POA. I was never his financial POA. So it's nothing about the money, but I was removed as his health POA. So then I had no say so of anything going on when I could see my dad's house from where I live. And a month or so later, after I was removed, because Claire convinced my dad I was after his money and I was going to put him in a nursing home.
Wow.
I didn't know that till later. And my dad was just clammed up. He just wouldn't talk to me anymore. But he fell a month later. He called me. I was there in like 3 minutes, and I sat there for 2 hours waiting on my brother to show up, who lived 20 minutes away. Then we waited another hour for the home care agency nurse to come out. And yeah, he needed to go to the hospital. And in that time, I said, Dad, I said, why did you remove me as your health POA? I would have had you at the doctor's like 3 hours earlier at 7:30 this morning. He says, you were after my money. And I said, I don't need your money. He said, well, I know that. And that was the other part of it is it'd be great if your parent would be willing to have a competency exam, just to have a set the bar someplace. My dad was never diagnosed with dementia, even though his mother and his sister had dementia real bad, but my dad was never diagnosed. So there, it was just, oh, he's just crazy, or he's just, so there was nothing I could do about this.
Yeah. Wow, you've raised a lot of good points here and a lot of things that it's good to be in the know. And I think it's really important to educate yourself. That doesn't mean go panic and, like, oh my God, this might happen, this, and that. No, but it's good to be in the knowing. Like when sometimes things do happen unexpectedly. And instead of panicking and it's good to do some research, do some reviews on the place you might be interested in or whatever the case. And you do raise a lot of valid points because even in my family, unfortunately, all of a sudden my dad had a stroke and all of a sudden we found ourselves in unfamiliar territory and something that's new to us, and we didn't understand how a person with a stroke function. All of a sudden it's just a brand new chapter in our life, and okay, we had to do step by step. And but yeah, you have to be in the knowing, research it, look at the reviews, and go beyond that, like really like look into as much as you can. as much as it's also hard at the same time, because all of a sudden your loved ones are is sick, whether it's a parent or husband or wife or whatever, right? Or even a child, things happen, right? So I think it's really important to be in the knowing, and when you feel something's not right, double check again. So I love that you're raising the bar on this, because we see things and sometimes we don't like them, and it's hard to once you get to a certain, it's hard to deal with them later, right? So it's good to take those measures. So I love that where you are, you're on a mission to require fingerprinting and FBI wrap bags for caregivers and stuff like that. So can you maybe explain how these measures would protect, once again, the vulnerable ones, and how can this help in the long run?
Yes. So you mentioned the FBI Rat Back. The FBI Rat Back is, I think, the best thing. And I came across the FBI Rat Back while I was renewing my brokerage license in the state of Texas a couple of years ago, actually 2019. And so FBI Rat Back is an ongoing real-time background check. Unlike having a background check every 5 years, 3 years. So say if Missy, who's a caregiver, whether at a facility, assisted living facility, independent living, nursing home, or home care agency. And Missy goes across the state line someplace and gets busted for drugs for the weekend. She's out partying, maybe
Mm,
a DUI, drugs, whatever. And she gets bailed out and she goes back to work on the following Tuesday. And the employer doesn't know anything about it, right?
mm,
Or then she's got to take time off to do some probation work or whatever. The employer doesn't know anything what's going on over here. Unlike with the FBI Rap Back, if there's a national database tied into your state police department that, oh, Missy got picked up over the weekend in Oklahoma or Texas for drugs or DUI. She was in jail. Okay, so they notify the state police department. The state police department notifies the employer. So the employer knows that Missy messed up over the weekend, right? Now, she's not convicted, but at least the employer knows, oh, Missy may have a drinking problem or a drug problem. And so then the employer would use their discretion whether to continue employment with Missy or not. That's the thing. That's the thing, because just like this woman that took care of my dad who'd been in jail years earlier, you know, and it came about because once a meth head, always a meth head, which I didn't know anything about that world. And so, this FBI rat back would be the best thing because it's ongoing real time. What we're trying to do in Arkansas, if we cannot get FBI rat back, that we at least have background checks every 3 years. Right now, it's not required, or maybe once every 5 years if you're a
mm,
resident. So just have a so that would help detour the bad people coming in to care for your loved one is fingerprinting and background checks. Okay, maybe they're clean. Maybe they've never been caught. But if they've been caught or they have a tendency to think about taking advantage of a vulnerable loved one, then maybe it would lessen the chances of having a bad person, inept, immoral, unethical caregiver to come into your loved one's home to steal whatever they want to out of the house.
yeah.
And I mean, your loved one is sitting there watching TV or on the computer, and Missy's going back to the bathroom, or Missy's, you know, who are these people coming into somebody's house? Who are these people? So you've got to qualify not only the agency, but qualify the caregiver too. And when a chapter in my book is, one of the caregivers who actually wrote a chapter because she's on the inside, she says, Jackie, they're only as good as the agency that hires them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So you've done a lot of research, and you're expert in this area. What are the most common mistakes families make when selecting care for their loved ones, and how can they avoid them?
Boy, you got great questions, Ava.
Which one?
So, you know, we're all vulnerable because your loved one is in a crisis moment. And so when I hired this one agency and Claire finally showed up like, 6 months later, and we've been through a roundhouse of caregivers through these agencies and stuff. I thought I found a new best friend. Yeah, I thought I found a new best friend. And that was the worst mistake because this is all a business. Everything's a business. And now on the flip side, I'm venturing off just a little bit, is sometimes a good caregiver might even there was an instance in Florida where a caregiver found out that this woman's grandsons were financially exploiting her. So I think having a background check and using your gut feeling to interview individuals is the best thing you can do. Um, if at all possible, when you're going to meet a caregiver, go someplace neutral. Don't have the caregiver come out to your loved one's home because you may not hire them. And then they already have been in somebody else's house and may know how the setup is and everything. You don't know who you're talking to, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you've
So
got
don't
to
give them
go
more than needed at the beginning. Yeah,
at the beginning,
yeah,
right? And don't be friends with them. It's all a business. Um, I had to do things that I never thought I would have to do, like try to give my father an enema. And the woman says, "Well, I'm not allowed to do that." And I'm going, "Well, there's a lot of things you're not allowed to do." But anyway, so, the healthcare, caring for your loved one gets beyond you, and you need to recognize what you can and can't do. And November is National Family Caregiver Month, actually, Ava.
mhm.
And you've got to take care of yourself first. You've got to take care of yourself. I say take care of yourself first. You can take care of your loved ones later. You got to take care of yourself first. And, you know, like yourself, you can't lift your father. You can't move somebody twice as heavy as you. You've got to be careful and you've got to find help. And how you find help is more than one recommendation. Try to interview as many home care agencies or facilities you can. Um, if a crisis happens and your loved one's in the hospital, that's a time to start scouting around and talking to people. Just don't pick up the phone and call the first one you were told about.
Yeah, and sometimes it happens that the person is, if it's a husband and wife, maybe the wife, because of what happened just recently, is not in the state to start even doing that. Then, of course, you hopefully have options where you can reach out to a family member or somebody you trust that when they do the research, that they're gonna be, they'll, you know, going in depth and not just taking the first person that comes along, that they'll actually also do research and things like that. So that's really important. I know in our case, we did as much research as we could do. At the moment things happen, but that doesn't mean like, once it's done, that's it. You want to keep your eyes and ears open, as they say. And my mama used to say in the movies, they always say, never mix a business with pleasure.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Yeah,
And
that was my biggest mistake in trusting this woman to take care of my dad, and she took care of him in more ways than one.
yeah.
And I had no idea till it was too late.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's why it's important to keep eyes and ears open and look for those red flags and question them when they do come up, because after all, it is your loved one, husband, wife, kid, or parent. They are looked after, and hopefully they are in the best hands possible. So it is really important. So, Jacklyn, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom, and we'll definitely share the page, how people can reach out to you, the book on Amazon. And in the name of this podcast is Rise and Thrive, Mornings with Intention. So, how important do you think it is to set intention for the day?
you must have intention. things happen during the days that kind of might blow your plan or your intention, but you must always keep a focused intention of what to succeed day by day.
And do you have any practices you do on the regular basis in the mornings? Meditation, yoga, do you do anything like journal?
I wish I would do yoga. I wish I would do meditation. I don't quiet my mind enough for that.
Yeah.
But I tell you, on a personal basis, I mean, I'm on a farm. I have horses, I have dogs, I have cattle. Um, a cow gave birth last week and she broke her hip. We had to put the cow down, so now I'm bottle feeding a calf twice a day. So I have my sanity with my animals, and I think a lot of people can relate with that.
Yeah, and you're in nature, so that's also very grounding and important. So,
It,
that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for being on our podcast, and thank you for sharing all your wisdom with us today. If you guys ever need anything, please reach out to us. We are here for you. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and thank you so much for listening today.